Good afternoon, everybody. So today is the, I think, 8th day of CNY, Chinese New Year. So I would like to wish you all a belated happy birthday. Because I heard that in Chinese New Year, just Chinese culture, the 7th day is considered everybody's birthday, right? So everybody may have celebrated yesterday. So anyways, that since you have already celebrated your birthday, now we start with the session. Yeah. So first thing I would like to just point out is, yeah, it's a simple one, right? So when we do the first prayer of Sanji Shuzoma, right? Sanji Shudan Soji Chonama, Sanju Badudani Jasunji, Dage. Actually, so there are three versions. These two are the same, first and two sentences. The third sentence, usually when we are doing pujas and all, it should be Dage Jinsu Jibi Sonamji, meaning the prayers and offerings that you are offering, right? So whenever there is a teaching and all, it should be Dage Chunyen Jibi Sonamji. Okay, yeah, Dage Chunyen Jibi Sonamji, right? So it means like the merits that accumulate by listening to the teachings, right? So when we say Dage Jinsu Jibi Sonamji, it's like the merit accumulated from the offerings. So it's just according to the occasion, you are just changing it a little bit. So when we are doing that, it should be chunyen jibi sonamji. Chunyen meaning basically listening to the dharma. So as the teaching giver, the teaching giver should be saying dagi chuche jibi sonamji. So that if you are not giving the teaching, you only say the chunyen. So the teaching giver must say chuche because from the merit that I accumulated by talking about the dharma, may this be. So this is just a small, what we call traditional point that I would like to make clear, because sometimes you may get mistaken, right? So because of course Tibetan is not your first language, and so there's slight differences. So it's important to know that. So based on the occasion that we do, right? So in the previous sessions, we all talk about how to be considerate to others and how to deal with maybe toxic people, how to cut off evil friends and all, right? And also like how to gossip in a meaningful way, like how to gossip in a meaningful way, the battle which I lost. Oh, okay. So I think, yeah. So basically that's all that we talked about, and about like how to deal with different types of people, like not trusting them straight away, but not having the closed mind, but having the trusting mind, but not trusting them straight away, right? Having the ability to screen and how the person is going to react to that, right? So all of this, right? So basically, whatever we have talked about is basically about improving yourself. So improving yourself. So the motivation should always at the start of every session, teaching, prayer should be how do I improve myself? How do I benefit others, right? If you are doing the Mahayana practice, of course, it can be like, how can I do this so that it benefits others? Then if you are doing the more like what do we call, for your own self, right? That's also okay, right? For the improvement of others, not the self-centered improvements, but like for the benefit of, if you improve, generally the people around you will feel the, what do we call, change, and they may improve also. So that's what the motivation should be, right? So whenever we start, so that's the thing. So I think we have covered all of this till verse 24. The 24 and 25th, I remember the last time I was rushing through it. So I would like to talk a little bit about the verse 24 and 25th. Then we'll go in the next, right? So the verse 24 is indecision mixes up important goals, completely cut it off, right? So this verse gives us a advice on how to unshackle your potential, right? So from the binds of indecisiveness, right? And uh, indecisiveness. Basically, indecisiveness is something that, suppose you are a ship, right? Suppose you are a ship, and it's basically the anchor, like not letting you move, right? Like indecisiveness, whether to do it or not, and what do you call, whether to do it or not, it restrains us, right? It restrains us to a certain place that we are not being able to decide to do it, have not have the confidence to do it, right? So that's what you call, this verse begins with the warning against indecision. You should cut it off, right? Yeah. So it can it also highlights that it can muddle our like goals, right? So that's the here. So to reach the further ship to travel, what we must do is the anger must be pulled out, right? Anger must be pulled out and gone. Anger must be pulled out so that the ship can move forward. And similarly here, the indecisiveness, whether to do something or not, or whether you want to, let's say, whether you want to uh, do something, let's give an example of uh, watching a movie on uh, Netflix or whichever platform that is there. Then you are just scrolling, not deciding on which to watch, right? Because there's a lot of, what do we call, abundance of choices that is there, that you are not able to make the decisive choice to do one thing. That can be, this is the one thing that's related to online, but also like uh, offline. It can be like buying something or etc., right? So maybe like having a lot of digital projects and having like indecisiveness whether to start this one or the other one. So this indecisiveness so mixes of important goals. So what's basically here it's saying is, when we have a abundance of choice, it scatters our attention to, it basically muddles our decision making, right? It muddles our decision making and scattering of attention, and it dilutes our, what do we call, objectives. Like within previously, as mentioned in one of the previous verses, undertaking too much, right? So it's basically one way of saying that. So what we can do to do all of this is cutting out our digital indecision and having a mindful scrolling experience, right? So of course, I'm not saying that you should scroll and just waste time on it, whether it be Instagram or that, but intentionally scrolling, like give a specific amount of time, like maybe 15 minutes, I'll scroll and set up an alarm so that once that time occurs, you stop from scrolling, right? Sometimes what we do is, because we are tired, we are facing with a, what do we call, uh, hard times, difficulty, then we love to distract ourselves instead of facing the problem, right? So the distraction becomes the mindless scrolling, where it just diverts our attention. It just diverts our attention from one to another to another. So basically, that's you are not facing the problem, you are just delaying it, right? With a sense of distraction. So of course, like mindful scrolling, what I'm saying is you can scroll, of course, like as a, not an aesthetic, what a aesthetic, what's that called? One who goes to the Himalayas, hermit. Oh, as you all are not are hermits. Are you? I don't know. Like all of you are not hermits. Then of course there will be times that you indulge in this, right? But having the sense that when you are going to indulge, having a sense of, what do we call, intentionally having the intention to allocate this much time I'm going to spend on this much time I'm going to spend on this. that may help you like have more decisiveness in your choices, right? So also here, indecision, cut it out doesn't mean that. So indecisiveness itself is a thief of time, right? It steals our time. It steals our time, and it's also a barrier to progress. So maybe it also indecisiveness comes from our fear of making the wrong choice, right? Suppose I want to watch a movie on the Netflix, then I choose and choose. I want to choose the best movie possible, the best movie that there is there, right? The one that will maybe like make you happy, make you laugh, or make you enjoy the time, right? Make you cry also, maybe. Yeah. So like emotion, like having this type of fear, not less a fear, but just what do you call? The sense of wanting to do good for your time may cause you to waste more time, right? So that's what the thing. Then, of course, there is a lot of overwhelming options to choose from, right? And also, like, it can also stem from the fear of what you call lack or fear or the lack of what do you call confidence in one's own judgment, right? Suppose you want to do something, then you don't have the confidence in your own judgment whether I should do it or not. But it doesn't mean here that uh, you should just jump into it, right? Of course, before the antidote for indecisiveness is decisive, decisive actions that you take, right? But here it doesn't mean you want to do something, you just take the decision and jump into it. Here it means taking the gathering the information necessary, the pros and the cons, we call it, right? The pros and the cons, weighing the options. Of course, these are all needed, but too much of this can lead to indecisiveness, right? So basically, here it's saying that, of course, we must weigh it. We must weigh it in the sense like, if I do this, will this hurt others or not, right? Will this benefit others or not? All this should be taken into consideration before doing the decisive action. Sometimes we may take this too literally, and I don't suppose you practice decisiveness, and today I think of something, I do it. So that may create a problem in itself, right? So here we must try to learn to balance it, right? So that's the thing. So a bad disposition is the way to acquire enemies, completely cut it off. So here, a bad disposition, bad disposition basically means bad attitude, right? So when you have a bad type of attitude, it's like a magnet, right? It's like a magnet. Whether when the magnet is there, whether you want the steel to come near it or not, it will come. So when you are having a like a bad attitude, like a negative attitude, basically always criticizing whoever you meet, then that, of course, people may not like you. People won't like you, even though in our uh, innermost emotion maybe to be liked, but people may not like you if you have a bad disposition. So is similar to the magnet. So this will create more adversaries, more enemies towards you, more people bad mouthing you, right? So so you should cut it off, right? A bad disposition online can be a person who is always commenting negative, right? Always have an opinion on something, right? Because the what do you call online thing gives us the anonymous anonymous or the secrecy to hide our faces or comment whatever, right? Comment like whichever opinion that we have, right? And also the algorithm there may be like what do we call, showing you only the things that you want to see, or maybe if they show something other than what you have what you have what decision or an opinion towards, you get so angry about it, right? And you just post it. So here it can be you are creating online enemies, right? Basically, whenever they see the what do we call user ID? Is it user ID? Yeah. When they see the user ID, this guy is negative. So maybe you won't find any online friends then. Yeah. So that's the thing. Uh, that's the thing. So over time, a bad disposition, in a way, like in a short time, it may sometimes give you like benefit, but over time, this can lead to isolation, right? People not wanting to be near you, people not wanting to talk to you because of your disposition, right? Having the negative disposition. So people in our own self, right? In our own, what do we call, as a human being, we naturally gravitate more towards positive, right? We naturally, inherently, we gravitate more towards positive. Of course, like some environments may create the, you have to indulge in the negativity, but it won't feel good after indulging in it, right? In a long term, after short, of course, in the short term, you may feel good, but like getting what you want. But in the long term, usually the self, not self, instant gratification is basically muddling our thoughts, right? Here. So that's what. So the bad disposition, you should completely cut it out because it acquires enemy for you. And basically, in the long term, it will isolate you, right? Sometimes I feel, I don't know, I feel like people who comment negative always online, right? They are basically sometimes seeking attention, right? Somebody to connect with them. If somebody replies to them, then they get the dopamine hit, or is it that what was that called? Dopamine hit. Yeah, of like having superficial online interaction with a human, right? Or maybe a sense of validation also, like something like that. So basically, of course, we can generate compassion towards these people, right? This type of people, but for instant gratification, we are basically in the long term isolating ourselves, right? Ourselves, if you indulge in that. So basically, it's saying this. So this, of course, we talked before also, like having to pause before reacting to anything online and so on. So the again, fantasies are a host of evil ghosts. So here, the where the fantasies are saying is on online, it's curated, right? On online, it's a lot of curation going on of what to post online, and you show the best of yourself and etc. So whenever that's there, then we have a fantasy of having the same, what do you call, level of achievement or uh, showing off that's going on the online, right? So these are a host of evil ghosts. Here the evil ghosts metaphorically meaning haunting you, creating trouble for you, creating more suffering for you, right? So you should cut off these fantasies, right? Then okay, here in the English version, it's what we call written as bad servants, but in the Tibetan, it's actually bad followers, right? So in the internet sense, we can have the Instagram followers, bad followers, right? Instagram followers or TikTok followers, whichever platform you are in. The bad followers in the sense that uh, they always ask to do negative of you, and you are pressurized by the followers to do things that even though in the you don't want to, but you have the fear of losing them, then you have to do it. So maybe that happens, right? I've seen that happen, like in maybe like online trends and everything like that. So basically, this is saying cut them off, right? So similarly, in the voice verse 25, evil companions, right? So evil companions here can be people or who can lead us to a path of wrong ways, right? we do it for them, but it can create in the long term a regret. Why did I do that in that time? So we should cut them off, because we as human being, our like social circle, right? Our social circle has the power to transform us, whether for the positive or the negative, right? The positive or the negative. So our thoughts, our behaviors, or even our like perspectives are what shaped by we have in our circle, right? So when we have evil companions, people who are not morally stable or unmoral, right, unethical, so they when we have that, then it will create a bad influence for yourself, not happiness for yourself, right? And similarly, it can be online also. You have like, you are in a social circle where you joined a group chat. Is it a group chat or community? Because there are a lot of online Facebook communities, right? You join a community where everybody is toxic, right? Toxic and negative, right? You join let's say a gym where all the, what do you call, are toxic, and you injure yourself, right? So like that's also like, we can call that as evil, right? Whether it be followers or anything. So here basically this is saying to cut them off, right? Not to cut them off as in sense like I'm not going to talk to you, but not to be influenced by them, right? Not to be influenced. Know that this may influence you, and that this influence is not good, and just having the understanding that this can influence you, right? Online we can of course reduce, right? So that's that. So at the wicked places are encircled by misery. So wicked places here can be social circle, right? So when you are in a negative social circle, it will always create, what do we call, misery to you. It will always create suffering to you. So you should cut them off. So worldly customs are ankle restraints. So here basically the verse addresses worldly customs, right, to ankle restraints that hinder our progress. So, so this can be the social expectations, right? Social expectations. I expected, let's say, somebody to become a doctor. The social. You personally may want to become a CA or chartered accountant or an artist or and musician, right? But the social expectation of you maybe to become a, maybe like, what's the what's the general Singaporean aspire to be? Celebrity? Really? Okay, so like the general, like there is a expectation, right? So in, I think in India it's mostly doctor or engineer, right? So there is a like a social expectation of you. So this can create, become as an ankle restraint, or become as a cause of suffering for yourself, right? So that can also limit, when you are doing something that you don't want to do, it can limit your potential. It can limit your potential, and by challenging these constraints, we may be able to pursue our life better, meaningful life, right? So that's the thing. So one of the things is that. So also like the what do we call, worldly customs here can be uh, done as online trends, right? Worldly custom, let's say online worldly custom, right? So somebody, you see somebody doing something, and because it's a trend, you have to do it, right? Is the what do we call, hot topic, trending, is the trending thing that is they are doing, and so everybody has to do it, like, to maybe, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I saw news where people lost their life following the trend, right? Yeah, is it TikTok? Yeah. So these are basically worldly customs that is limiting you, causing you suffering, right? Like is whether it be a TikTok trend, you follow them, you have to do them because of the wanting to your desire of wanting to gain more followers or so on, right? So that's the problem. That's what it's saying here. Completely cut them off. So you should be able to judge whether it's beneficial or not. So the what do we call cultivating of discernment? Is it called discernment? Yeah, cultivate the ability to judge whether it's good or not. Sometimes like it it it's a creating problem for us, right? So just following the trend because other people are doing that. So that's the thing. So we should cut them off. We should not just follow them because they are worldly customs. We should see the logic behind them. We should analyze whether it's beneficial or not, right? So that's the thing, the verse 25. And I think the verse 26, right? Yes, I think it's shown there. So the five degenerations are rampant in this evil time, right? So the concept of five degenerations, we are in an era where rapid transformation, right? And increasing complexity. So we are in an era like that. So the five degeneration basically is degeneration of lifespan. I think I think it should be same. Is it in the same? Yeah, degeneration of time, degeneration of afflictions, and degeneration of view, and degeneration of sentient beings, right? So basically, the Buddhist philosophy talks about this, the degeneration of everything, five degenerations, right? So, uh, what was I thinking? The five degenerations basically are really amplified right now. Right now, we are in a world where lots of technological advancements are happening, right? Technological advancement are happening where you cannot discern between the true and the false, where people can use this, right? Recently, this one is a little bit scary. Usually, we say, what we see, we believe, right? You believe what you see. It's the other way around. You believe what you see, but that also is being questioned here, right? Recently, I think last yesterday or day before yesterday, somewhere there was a technology that's launched, right? I think it's called Sora or something by OpenAI. Okay, it's an AI thing. It's an AI thing. Basically, what that does is you put in a word there, like you want something of a video, and it generates a real, not even a like a 3D, like 3D animation type. It creates a real video of you or whoever, right? Basically doing whatever that's written in the text. So here we are getting into a more complex area where we cannot believe what we see, right? If we believe on that, then it will create problems. So here people may be able to use it to propagate hatred towards others, right? Propagate hatred towards others. So I think this technology is called Sora or something, right? OpenAI Sora or something. So that's the thing. So here the five degenerations, like in this modern life, is becoming more rampant in the sense that more relevant, right? More more relevant. So here the five degenerations refer to decline in spiritual and moral values. Whether you remember the five degenerations or not doesn't matter. Basically, the sense is the decline in spiritual and moral values, right? So it's also categorized by rise in desire and hatred, right? This is getting amplified. Of course, you may see this is getting amplified a lot our desires are getting amplified, and hatred also is getting amplified, right? So these degenerations were talked about in Drom's time, right? Drom's time, but these degenerations are still more il- going evil, going more rampant in our time, right? So we are in a hyper-connected world where the amplification of desire and hatred seems always there, right? In one post, you can always see somebody posting negative, somebody commenting negative, or somebody being overly attached, right? So this the rise of materialism, is it called materialism? Yeah, and the pursuit of instant gratification, right? Having some things like instant gratification and the polarization of views, right, is creating all these degenerations, the degeneration of view, right? The decline of virtuous traits and the ordained. Okay, so we can just tell it like that. The degeneration of the view is basically what social media, okay, I will go a little technological, a little technical on this. The social media basically creates echo chambers, right? The doing what echo chambers. So you are basically shown what you want to see, your view, right? It's called echo chambers. So you like let's say, what do you call, one political party, or you like a certain opinion, then you watch that. Then that let's do it a little bit more modern, right? Suppose, let's say, whether Ronaldo or whether Messi is the better player. You watch the Ronaldo is the better player one, then it will always show you the Ronaldo is the better player one. And you watch the other one. Then if you watch the Messi is the better player, it only shows you that, right? Is there like a Singapore relevant to this too? Huh? Yeah. Okay, I don't know. I can't even pronounce. So basically, what this the algorithm or whatever does is it shows you what you want to see again and again. So that in a way creates what do we call echo chambers, right? When you get more attached to that view, you get more attached to that you find different minute reasons to have more amplification of that view. And when the other guys come, other different opinion of comes, you basically see them as your enemy. That guy basically is destroying your view or that. So here, the degeneration of the view is even more there, right? Degeneration of the view. So here, I think it's described as the decline of virtuous traits and the ordained, but it's more of having the view of, even though the view is different, having the accept, having the ability to, having the capacity to accept the other view, right? So here, the degeneration of views means that also, right? Degeneration of applications is easy. Like we are getting more things to buy, and so of course degeneration of afflictions, meaning like our desires and hatred are getting more and more fueled, right? So all these are happening. It may be due to the online advancements, or it may be due to the rise of materialism, right? So we can't of course pinpoint, but we can know it's rising. So it's rampant, right? So here, in the word itself, it's written as, what's it written as? Maybe rampant in this evil time. We call our era as an evil time. So basically, here is not to condemn the time itself, but to know that this is a time like this, right? So it also, this verse also, uh, what do we call it, gives us an advice on to have a critical examination of the values that we are having, right? How how to underpin, right? To have like a underpin our actions and desires, right? So that's the thing. So here, basically, the verse is saying the evil are rampant in this evil time. Is not just to condemn, but the to show an urgency to take action on this, right? Is showing that. So what we can do is, of course, individually, we can generate more compassion and be more open to opposing views, right? Not get defensive of your own views, not get too attached to your own views. So that's the thing. So we should be promoting emotional and spiritual literacy, right? Literacy meaning like learning, right? Knowing your own emotions, right? And here, mostly, we are in a world where it's mostly dominated by intellectual and material achievements, right? Instead, we should be doing more nurturing of the emotional and the spiritual literacy, spiritual, what you call intelligence, right? So here it becomes paramount, right? Of course, we need intelligence, what you call intellect, and a little bit of materialistic, but focusing too much on that creates all this imbalance, right? Imbalance in between this. So that's the thing. So I think there is a these days in I don't know whether it's in Singapore or not, the sea learning program. There is. Okay, so this is basically a step taken by His Holiness, right? Sea learning, like what's the full form? I forgot. Social emotional, yeah, not equation. So okay, sea learning basically it teaches you about in schools and universities they are implementing this idea of, yeah, ethical learning, right? Sea learning. So like previously it was not there, but now due to His Holiness endeavors and all, it's being implemented in schools, right? Social, emotional, and ethical learning. So sometimes, like maybe our what do you call bringing up during that time, because we were too focused on success and materialist, like advancement of technology. Maybe we missed something there, right? But we can aspire to be better versions of ourselves even in this degenerate time. In Buddhist perspective, the one during the degenerate times, if you do a merit, right? If you do some good things, good karma, and uh, good spiritual practice, you are double folding it, right? Uh, if you do it on a generate, is it called generate time? Good times, not degenerate times, but good times. Uh, when you are doing this same spiritual practice in the degenerate time, it amplifies, right? It amplifies. It becomes more meritful, and so on. So the degeneration of lifespan, that's of course the decline of life force, meaning like decline of life force, we can dedicate it to environmental also, right? So we can see environmental degradation, right? Climate change, or maybe like, what do you call climate change, and what are their others? I can't remember. Climate change and the like we can see sudden weather changes where it's affecting the world, right? So, and as long as it affects the world, it affects us, because the role of interdependence plays a part on this, right? The role of interdependence plays a part on this, and how like the what do you call the desire for consumerism, is it called consumerism, like consuming more and more and more, then it's creating like a environmental imbalance, right? Environmental imbalance. is there is anyone there from the fashion industry? I don't know. Maybe. I heard a term called fast fashion or something. Fast fashion, where you just use the clothes that you are wearing for 1 2 days and throw it away. I think I heard something like that, right? So all there, all lot of I think a lot of landfills are being created by all of this, right? I heard research on this. I read a research on this, not heard. I read a research on this where it's creating a lot of waste that is not what we call recyclable or so on, and it's creating problem for to what do you call have a sustainability problem, right? So all this basically stems from what? Desire, right? Desire of wanting more, desire of a materialism, right? So when we are not happy in our own minds, we seek materialistic pleasure. We seek materialistic pleasure, whether it be watching movies for distraction, for not facing the mental problems, right? Or whether buying something else to lessen the you we buy something else to lessen the yeah, is it called retail therapy or shopping therapy? Yes. How many of you have gone to shopping therapy in the recent days? Yeah. Lillian also. Yeah, shopping therapy, right? Of course, it may help for like to get your mind off the thing, but it's not really solving the problem from the inside. It's not really solving the problem. We have to face the problem and come to terms with it so that we can face it, right? So that's the thing. The spiritual depth, of course, like a lot of people are getting less spiritual these days, right? So we can spiritual. I'm not just saying spiritual in the sense that religious or anything like that, but spiritual in the sense that you are not training your own mind. You are not training your own mind to control your emotions and so on, right? So here we are getting emphasis on the external appearances and instant gratification. We want to eat something, we just order it, right? And even there, the indecisionness is there, whether to order from what's the like, most, huh? Okay, whether to order from Grab or whether to order from Food Panda. And when we go to each of these, what do you call apps, inside we see a lot of options. Then whether to order from maybe KFC burger or Burger King, McDonald's, like three choices, right? So that happens. So here, what is showing is this. So that's that are rampant in this. So that's the thing. So how can we like since it's degenerating, how can we regenerate, right? How can we regenerate the times that lives pose or the spiritual values or what do we call degeneration of time and degeneration of afflictions. The degeneration of affliction, you can do it personally, right? Personally, you can try to reduce your desire and attachment to things, right? Instead of having like instant gratification on whatever you are getting, try to reduce it, right? Reduce it so that it of course this can be applied to your practice also, like religious practice also. I'm doing we may think we are just one person, right? Like suppose let's say 20 people are here. If one people wants to regenerate, what's the power that I will have, right? Because all the 19 people, all the 19 other people are what we call using the fast fashion or using things that can degenerate all of this. So when this happens, the have you yeah I talked about it, right? The butterfly effect. A small action can create a what do you call long-term uh con- effects. Yeah, long-term effects. So that's that. So degeneration of affliction is easy. Degeneration of view is being basically you can have more open-mindedness, right? Open-mindedness in the sense that of course you you know the opposing view and where it's coming from, the perspective that it's coming from, right? So that, and not being stuck in your own echo chamber, right? Not being stuck in your own comfort, what do you call view? Comfort view, right? So that's degeneration of sentient beings, meaning degeneration of like sometimes it's also called as degeneration of sentient beings, of degeneration of human experience, right? So I think here in the book itself, in the booklet itself, if you look at the last part, here it's called as degeneration of quality of human experience, right? So here, what we can see is, of course, there is a degeneration in quality of human experience, right? We are having more online interactions than offline, right? We have more. I can have a friend if I even if I'm sitting in India, I can have a friend who is like thousands and hundreds of miles away. So, so the quality degeneration or deterioration of human experience can be that we are not having the quality experience that we have when we come face to face, right? Like a superficial online friend, right? So that, as we are social human beings, we need that social interaction, right? Of course, the name itself, the social media, right, is actually it was created to have more sociality, but in a way it's creating more loneliness or more degeneration of human experience, right? Right. So that's the thing. So degeneration, of course, like oh yeah, degeneration of objects of engagement. This is happening because of like too much, what do you call, corporate taking over, the degeneration of time, uh, like stay results of taste potency, right? This is happening because like we are creating the environment, right? We are harming the environment so that it degenerates the potent of the herbs or whichever that's we are using, right? So this can be related like that. From a practice point of view, when you are practicing to get rid of all this, it can be really, what do you call, powerful, right? So that's the thing. This when you think of this and you reduce your desire, you reduce the, what do you call, you have open-mindedness for view. This all can be applied to the practice of bodhicitta, right? For the sake of all sentient beings, I will open my mind, right? Have like not be stuck in my echo chamber. So that's the thing. So so the as stated in the verse itself, desire and hatred, the obstructive demons of all religious people, cause harm. So these five degenerations are having because of, at the core of all these five degeneration are the main two causes, right? Desire and hatred. Desire is causing the desire for things, and wanting too much is causing, maybe it may be the, for a company it may be the profit, right? They are just looking at the profits and creating situations where a lot of animals, a lot of people have to suffer, right? And environmentally. So so to really like, what do you call, change it, the heart of this challenge lies the, what do you call, challenge of desire and hatred, right? Here it's mentioned as it's an obstruction for all the religious people, but it's not just an obstruction for religious people, right? It's an obstruction for everybody. It's an obstruction for humanity itself, right? Too much desire left unchecked, unbridled, is it called unbridled? Yeah, unbridled or unchecked can create problems, right? So that's the thing. So, so what is desire in the sense, right? What is desire? Desire in its essence is the craving for something we believe will bring us happiness, right? We believe it will bring us happiness or fulfillment. Inherently itself, like having a little bit of desire, right? Desire itself inherently may not be like what do you call, really negative, right? We can turn it into a positive thing also, but unbridled, what do you call, unbridled, unrefined, unbridled, unchecked desire, like too much, too much of the desire can be a source of what do we call dissatisfaction, right? Not being satisfied with anything and wanting more and more. So we may always be chasing the next source of pleasure or achievement, right? So maybe like anyone who is a shopping addict. Okay, so anybody, so uh, really, somebody is pointing fingers. uh, so when you shop, right? When you shop for something, you want that thing, and you think that will bring you buy it, right? You buy the thing, and it satisfies you for a certain amount, right? Like maybe like 1 hour, 2 hour. Then it becomes normal. Then you look online and you search again and want that thing, and then again you buy it, right? So in the long term, it may become like you are not satisfied with what you have, right? It all you are always chasing the next thing, right? For instead of finding the lasting contentment, lasting satisfaction, just after buying, we left it go and we could do it. So if you don't know fast fashion, maybe you research and its effect on the environment. So fast fashion is basically something like that, I think, right? You do it, you buy it, you wear it for 1 2 days, throw it away, you buy and throw it away. So something, I think it's something like that. Of course, I'm not a fashionable person, so you should you should ask. My fashion is simple, right? Always wear the same thing again and again. So that's the thing. So this relentless pursuit for wanting more and more may distract us from deeper and more meaningful aspects of life, right? Aspects of life such as human connection and compassion and spiritual growth and so on. So this desire binds us to the materialistic things, right? Materialism in obscures, right? It obstructs our understanding of our true needs, right? That's what desire is. Of course, if you go more into root than that, of course, ignorance is there, right? Ignorance or self-cherishing mind is there. But for us, it's easier to understand uh, desire and hatred than go more deeper into how ignorance works. So all of this, the basics, the root cause is ignorance, right? So the next one is hatred. So hatred is like for hostility that we feel towards others or situations, right? Situations or aspects of ourselves which we find not agreeable or threatening, right? So hatred also divides us, right? Hatred also divides us, created barriers between us, like within our hearts, right? Even though there is no like a physical barrier between, but it creates a barrier between people, right? So hatred can consume us, leading to action and works that can harm not only others but yourself, right? So it's like a fire, right? Burning yourself, right? Hatred is something like that. So here it's he's mentioned as demons because it obstructs our spiritual progress, right? Spiritual, sometimes when we think of spirituality, it feels as so much religious, right? But it's spirituality doesn't mean that. Spiritual basically means training your own mind, right? To a more happier and what do we call thinking, right? Not so stuck on that. So that's the thing. So how to overcome desire and mindfulness, right? How to overcome desire and mindfulness? sorry, not mindfulness, overcome desire and hatred is basically to practice of vigilant introspection and mindfulness, right? Knowing that this desire is what do you call reaching, crossing the limit or getting too unbridled, right? And also with what do you call oh yeah, mindfulness, with mindfulness, hatred also, like when it's going out of control. So this, through mindfulness and having that vigilant introspection when these things are arising, this awareness itself creates a space for choice, right? Whether you act upon the desire. When the mindfulness and the vigilant introspection is there, it creates a space, it creates like a resting place. Whether when if you didn't have that, you would have acted upon the desire or hatred. This mindfulness practice and vigilant introspection, the vigilant introspection meaning knowing that this emotion has arise and it's reaching a level where it's uncontrollable, right? So knowing that will create a space for you to have a choice, whether you want to act upon the desire, whether you don't act upon the desire, right? Desire or hatred. So usually what happens is we don't know we are acting upon the desire, right? The mind is controlling you. You are not controlling the mind, right? So we don't let our emotions control us. So in the one of the basic teachings of Buddhism, or basic teaching of Buddhism, is not to let your emotions take control of you, right? Not to let emotions take control of you, but you be in control of your own mind, right? So when you are in the control of your own mind, you can have the what to call, you can analyze and not act upon emotions and still be happy, right? So that's the thing. So this mindfulness practice and vigilant introspection practice creates a space for choice, the opportunity to respond, right, rather than react. Of course, responding and reacting is different. So we can choose, right? We can choose actions that are aligned with our own ethical values, own morals, right? Own like beneficial or not in the long term. So so how do we cultivate this, right? So like spiritual practices, meditating, prayers, thinking about this emotion is rising, like mindfulness practice. There is a special type of mindfulness practice where you just rest, right? You just rest like that and let whatever emotions come and pinpoint, okay, this emotion is coming. This is like of course there are, like if you go more deeper, there are like 51 mental factors or even like 240 or something mental factors, right? So there are a lot in the Abhidharma. So whichever mental factor, whichever mental emotion is arising, you being able to pinpoint this is that emotion, this is that emotion. Sometimes us not knowing which emotion is arising may be also a problem, right? It's also a problem because we do not know what's influencing us, right? Which emotion is influencing the decision and so on. So, of course, for spiritual practices like that, whether prayer or meditation or study, when you study this, also it's like a practice, right? So, this all provide that these are like tools to reduce, right? Reduce the uh, desire and hatred, right? So as long as we are able to do that, we will be able to live more happily, right? So these spiritual practices, prayers, they teach us to cultivate qualities like gratitude, right? Qualities like gratitude, and when we have the and satisfaction, right? So when we have the prayers and all, it helps us cultivate gratitude, right? Gratitude towards what we have and so on. So when it cultivates gratitude, it's like a, what do we call, counter to the unbridled desire, instability of the unbridled desire, right? having gratitude with what you have, having satisfaction with what you have. So also like prayers, like all this also encourage forgiveness, like which is like a antidote to hatred, and we like of course compassion also. They These practices let us see the humanity in others, right? See the humanity in others and help us become more less hateful, less hateful. So that's the thing. So that's the thing. So I think I want, yeah, I think I'll just go a little bit more here. So that's what's happening. And so for ourselves, as we consciously work towards reducing attachment or desire and hatred, and embracing, right? Embracing humility. So basically, it's the third sentence and the fourth sentence of the verse 26. Wherever you go, minimize your attachment and hatred. Whatever you do, please adopt a humble attitude. So by consciously working on this, the in our we can improve all aspects of our life, right? All aspects of our life. And we also contribute to a world, right? We contribute to a world where each and everybody is more compassionate, right? Suppose one person does it and the second person does it, then everybody starts to become more understanding, more resilient, right? So, so this all requires us to reflect on ourselves every time, right? Every time, every moment. Of course, if it's not possible right away, we should start slowly by doing it, giving it like a special time. We should just give ourselves a special time just to meditate, right? Just meditate on, not say, let's say on emptiness, meditate on your own emotions. Because I think it was in Asanga, yeah, Asanga's one of the books called Path. Changsa is Changsa is part of Bodhisattva, and the Nyasa, right? Nyasa is the uh, part of listeners. So there's a book called Part of Listeners of Asanga. In that book itself, for a beginner, beginner practitioner, for a real beginner practitioner, the first thing we must do is just let our mind relax, right? Let our mind relax, and whatever emotion comes, recognizing it. Suppose you want, suppose when you are just sitting like that, the sudden want to eat a pizza, right? Sudden want to eat a, I'm going to irk some Italians, pineapple pizza. There was a time when this happened, right? When you add pineapple to pizza. And also there's one more thing, right? Spaghetti and noodles are same. So so when this all happens, right? Let's say when you are just sitting slowly and a thought of desire for wanting to have a pizza comes, right? Then you identify the emotion that's occurring. Oh, this is the emotion, desire, right? Wanting the pizza. So you recognizing each and every emotion, like just stay still for 5 minutes, see what thought occurs. See what thought occurs, right? Maybe we'll do this practice in the next session, right? We'll try to do like, and maybe dig out some secrets of what you may think in the 5 minutes, right? So we'll probably do it so that we can go from beginner to higher, little bit higher. We'll try to do it in the next session. So when that happens, of course, before that, you can practice in your home. Okay, so we identify each and every emotion that's arising. Then when we identify it, oh, anger arises, and we just notice that anger or desire or hatred or want for anything has arise, we just let it go, right? Let it go and see what the next arises. See what the next arises. So this in practice, in a way, you are practicing mindfulness with vigilant introspection, right? With learning to calm your mind. So there will come a point when you don't have any emotion arising, just like a calm, right, in the equanimity. So that's when we should start our, whether it's bodhicitta practice or whether it's refuge practice or uh, any practice that you want, right? So that's the thing. So of course, desire and hatred manifest in online environments a lot, right? Suppose, of course, we talked about it, social media envy, right? The one when somebody else is posting like uh, images of perfect vacations, like lifestyles, can ignite this our feelings of wanting those, right? Like being dissatisfied with ourselves, right? Being dissatisfied with ourselves, and a desire to attain similar kind of living or appearance, right? So that's true. And also, like in case of online, like the ease of online shopping, right? Or ease of online shopping and constant exposure to advise advisements, ad, ads, advertisements, those advertisements. Wherever we go, we always see advertisements, right? We see wherever we see the each and every company are wanting our attention, right? So that so also like maybe flash sales, offers, CNY offers, right? Chinese New Year offers, and like personally for me, new gadgets, right? New gadgets or fashion trends. This can trigger compulsive buying behaviors, right? Just for the instant gratification. So this is also a desire in a way. So that's true. That's the thing. Or maybe to fit in, you buy new clothes, right? Expensive clothes and so on. So these are like the online situations of desire, and also like hatred, of course, is more easy to understand, right? There is like a polarization and echo chambers and all this. So of course, this same practice applies here too. Before reacting on those, right? Practice. Let your mind relax for 1 minute. Think of it, right? Think of what emotions are going through. So, so even though attachment and hatred are like a natural human emotion, in excess, right, it will lead to suffering. It will lead to suffering. So, attachment binds us, right? Suppose you have attachment towards something, it binds us to this impermanent entity, right? Which is a entity that's impermanent. So in the Tibetan saying, there in the I think in Dharmakiti, yeah, I think Dharmakiti, yeah, Dharmakiti is saying because it's impermanent, it is a cause of suffering, and because it's a cause of suffering, its end can be achieved by meditating on emptiness and non-self-cherishing mind, right? So what attachment does is it binds us to impermanent entities, right? Leading to leading to like a certain pain, right? Certain pain when change occurs, right? Suppose we are too attached to a view. Suppose we are too attached to a person. Then when the person, of course, since we are an impermanent entity, the person will change in time, right? Not maybe not in 1 month, but maybe 10 years down the line, the person will change due to environmental causes, and of course, being the impermanent from his own essence, right? Person will change. That's when we are not able to accept the fact that the person can change, and we are still attached to the 10 years previous version of that person, or what do you call car, car or so on, right? Then it gives us suffering, right? Then mental suffering. This is not a physical suffering, it's a mental suffering, right? So suppose your car 10 years ago was racing through the roads like a, what do you call? Racing through the roads like a bullet train. Then in like 5 years, it's starting to break down every time. Then of course, because you are attached to the car, it may cause you suffering, right? Similarly to persons, similarly to your parents, right? Siblings or friends, right? So that's the thing. So as long as it's impermanent, that it attaches. The hatred one is more complex, right? Once we are hatred, once we generate hatred towards a person or something, we are still stuck. Attachment also plays a role here, where we have this view of the person and we are stuck with that view. We are attached to the view and that hatred, even though the person has changed, even though the person may have changed, right? May have changed for due to a long time in the process, you will still feel the hatred towards them because we are still attached to the permanent, like our view, right? Our view of them being like that previously, right? So we must, once we accept the that everything is impermanent, everything changes, then this suffering also lessens, right? Even though we may have an attachment to something, then uh, the what do you call suffering that occurs when things change maybe less, right? So impermanence in a way is a practicing impermanence in a way is a good way to counter impermanence. Sorry, counter desire and hatred, right? So this type of practices we should commit towards, right? Right, to nurture our hearts, to nurture our minds, right? So that's the thing. So adopting a humble attitude means, like, we should know that we are just a small peck of dust in the grand scheme of things, right? So that's the thing. So uh being humble, of course, we talked about it a lot previously, right? Being humble doesn't mean like accepting everything that's thrown at you and so on. It's an in practice, adopting a humble attitude means approaching every interaction with an curiosity rather than judgment, right? When you approach something with a judgment, of course, then you don't have the what we call humble attitude. When you instead approach everything with curiosity and opportunity to learn, right? Learn something new from that person's perspective. It's being open to feedback and right, valuing the contribution of others. So that's the thing. So I think, yeah, that's the thing. Whatever you do, please adopt a humble attitude. So from verse 27 and 28 is basically, so here I'll be the tourist guide. From here, I think I will take you to new places. Uh, the distant valley of Nepal is extremely hot, which I don't agree on. Distant valley, of course, compared to Tibet, yeah, compared to Tibet, basically Dom is talking compared to Tibet, right? It's extremely hot. I would think Singapore is more hotter, no? The distant valley of Nepal is extremely hot. Please be careful about what you drink to slake your thirst, right? Here, of course, I think Dom doesn't like Nepal very much. Okay, so Dom is basically saying when you go to Nepal, don't drink whatever you want, right? Okay, should I say this or not? In Singapore also, should I be afraid of what I drink? The drinking water? Okay, so I think, yeah, please be careful about what you drink to slake your thirst. So I should be careful of what I drink. So here it's speaking in geological sense, right? In a geological sense, but we can apply this to what do we call wherever new we are going. Like suppose like it can be related like this, like metaphorically, right? Suppose if you are going to somewhere very hot, then if you get so thirsty, right? Suppose let's say you are in a desert and your what do you call supply of water has diminished, right? Finished. Then when you want to drink something, if you see a water, of course you would want to drink it, right? You would want to drink it to quench the thirst. So here, even though the quenching of the thirst, immediately it will quench the thirst and give you what you call happiness, rid you of the relieve you of the suffering of thirst, right? But if the water itself is contaminated, right, contaminated, you will have longer term problems, right? So here basically what's Tom is saying to his student is wherever new you go, whoever new you interact with, beware of the instant gratification that's there. We can take it metaphorically as that, right? So even though he's saying Nepal is a bad place and not drinking Nepal, so it's basically saying some solutions may offer immediate gratification, right? Immediate satisfaction, but can have a long-term consequences, right? So sometimes we just want a quick fix, right? Quick fix to everything. Then, uh, so like we want to escape from the problems, right? So this, when we try to escape, like can be like a drinking from a contaminated. Okay. uh should be it can be like what do we call uh what do you call can be like drinking on drinking from a contaminated source, right? It's the same thing, right? So basically it's saying you to check whether the instant gratification is worth it or not, right? So it's also saying choosing what we consume, whether it be online content, right? Whether it be online content and like mentally, right? So yeah, I'm trying to take you to Nepal, so I think I have finished Nepal now. So that's the thing. There are very fearsome enemies south of High Pass. So from Nepal, I'm taking you to the south. So be careful of their animosity and evil spells. Okay, so here basically, uh, what they are saying is high pass. When you reach a high level, right? When you have high achievements, metaphorically, it's basically saying when you reach Nepal, you reach a high peak and there will be enemies there, right? From here, what's it saying? When you reach a peak of your achievements, careerly or spiritually, enemies, there may be like people who want to make you, push you down, right? Pull you down, whether it be through having different views on about you or no, right? So the high pass here represents the peak of our achievements, right? Whenever you reach, then so even after you reaching there, it doesn't mean you have reached the end, right? You could still improve. So you can go to the enemies can be still residing there, wanting to pull you down. So it basically means the challenges of having new experiences, right? So challenges of having new experiences. So the enemies here can be when you reach a high pass, when you reach a high achievement, the enemies can be egoist. We can have an external enemy and we can have an internal enemy, right? External enemy, of course, the people that want you to pull you down. The internal enemy can be our ego, our own ego, right? Thinking that we have achieved so much and getting egoistic. So here, basically, Dom is saying us to be beware of even like, of course, like whenever, of course, you may have seen this, but as a reminder, whenever the Lama sits on the throne, right? Lama sits on the throne, there is a necessity to do this. There is a necessity to do this, right? You, of course, you all may have seen this. This basically is reminding you. This is a reminder for impermanence, right? This is a reminder for impermanence, right? So this is sound, right? It's basically comes and stops, right? So it's basically reminding you each and every minute, like to be, because when the Lama sits on a high throne, the ego may come. I'm facing down upon you, and you all are listening to me. So it's basically to remind the Lama himself of the impermanence nature. Right now, I may be sitting on the throne, but tomorrow I may be sitting downwards, right? So it's basically to remind us of that. So here, basically, Dom is saying the same thing. When you reach a high pass, there may be ego, and what do you call what's the what's the opposite of humility? Yeah, pride. Okay, yeah, pride. Pride are your enemies, so you should be careful of them, right? So sometimes we should not take it just literally, right? So also here, the fearsome enemies and all this, right? So how we should always have the vigilance of whatever our achievements are, however high our achievements are, we should have the vigilance to know whether it's getting prideful or not, right? So to the north of Nangshep, okay. So here, maybe like, yeah. To the north of Nangshep, there are many disputous people. Please be careful of their vague and idle words, right? So there are many people who are just talk a little bit like, I heard something about when we ask something about a person, they say that. But when we ask what the something, it's something I heard. I really heard something. I really heard something. I don't want to share with you right now. I really heard something. But they just say like this vague questions to generate the what we call curiosity, or what do you call get juicy information out of you. So basically, he's trying to say uh to be beware of the individuals who thrive on all this type of attention, right? It may be like attention sitting. So that's the thing. So in Purja, the land of Tibet, there are evil, shameless men. Please be careful of those with agitated, angry minds. So here, basically, he's saying to beware of the like angry people and all. So here we should also please be careful. Here he's not saying that you should not go with them and all, right? But be careful how you interact with them. The agitation and angry can be generated through like discontentment, right? Discontentment towards maybe like maybe like they had some needs and it was not met, or deep uh, deep-seated fear. If that person comes here, that person may take away our position or so on, right? So all of this may be the reasons that's there. So that's the thing. So now I think verse 29. So I think this is the same as before. Then I won't have to talk so much about it. Nowadays, many people are friendly for enforcement, people are deceptive, seductive, acquaintances. So it's basically saying you to be careful. So here, the verse 29th half, do not lose faith in your chosen deity. Place little faith in men of this degenerate time. So here, basically, what's it's saying is, instead of relying too much on the what you call people, right? Rely. This is more going into the more religious type. Rely. You can which deity you have, the practice of that deity, right? you should practice it, right? Instead of just trying to, what do you call, see how degenerate the persons are and all not, right? Instead of trying to look upon that, you should focus on yourself, right? You should focus on whichever chosen deity that you have, right? So that's the thing. So the next one is, this is also called talking about faith, right? Faith, okay, so sometimes the faith comes like more Christian type, right? So faith at its core is a profound trust, right? Profound trust on or a devotion to a certain entity or principle, right? So it is a belief in something greater than ourselves, and it can be a source of strength during depressing times. So it's important to have faith in deities or spiritual practices, right? Whichever you want to choose. So, so in Buddhism, so there are two types of faith. There is one blind adherence, right? Blind faith. We call it blind faith, where the faith is not just analyzed upon. Somebody says it, you believe it. So that, of course, that faith is there. That is also a faith. But we must try to generate the faith with analyzing, right? With the teachings. So that's the thing. So you should have faith in the deity and of course your teachers, right? Deity and the teachers are in the tantric sense, they are the same, right? You can imagine them as same. So even though like during some challenging times we may face like challenges where our faiths are questioned, right? So here it's basically do not lose faith in your chosen deity. Means whatever time that challenging times come, do not lose faith on them. Of course, like here the practice of patience will help you, right? Practice of patience and practice of what's the fifth one? No, no, fourth one. The perfection of perseverance. Yeah, perfection of perseverance, right? So joyous perseverance. Yeah, yeah. Joyous perseverance. So that helps you maintain the faith in a chosen deity or a lama, right? A chosen deity or a teacher. So here when we say perseverance in having faith to the lama or deity, is not a resignation of passive resignation, right? uh, it's an engagement with our doubts and fears that we may have. So it also involves like seeking, what do we call, understanding, right? Like having faith in the lama means seeking understanding and embracing what's happening, right? So that's the thing. So yeah, that's the thing. So now I go to the verse 30. Without diminishing your concern for how others perceive you, minimize discussing the qualities of others, right? So, of course, like here it can be like minimizing when we should care about how others perceive you, right? We should care about how others perceive you, but we should not be too focused on what do you call how others perceive you, whether it be online. Sometimes like the online presence, it's like you care too much about the online presence, about how others may perceive you online, right? And we have to do it in a certain way and so on. So we should put our concern there, but if we put too much emphasis on that, it will create suffering for ourselves, right? Then we should not discuss the faults of others. So this is basically, I think, same as uh, which we had talked about. So we as a social human being, of course, we want that perception of others to be as kind as possible of us, right? To be good, the perception of others of you, we want that to be kind, right? as we are social human beings. So this concern is not a matter of vanity, but it's a reflection, right? It's a reflection of our need for connection. We want to connect with other people, right? So other people, whether it be superficial or genuine, right? So knowing this, knowing this that we want to have a connection, this will help you generate more compassion towards others and your own self, right? So that's the thing. So yeah, so we should balance the social perception without losing our own self, right? Sometimes, yeah. So here, I think I will win the gossip war. Without diminishing your concern for how others perceive you, minimize discussing the qualities and fault of others. So sometimes to fit in, we may gossip, right? So that's of course like taking too much into consideration of how others perceive you, and you start to gossip, right? So here basically is saying don't do that. So, and we should have like mindfulness on this. So now I think we are on this verse number 30, last sentence. Do not plan to procrastinate positive activities. Be someone who applies himself to the holy dharma. So, so in the journey of personal and spiritual growth, we always personal whether it be like office work also, we always have that problem of procrastination, right? We are the kings of procrastination during work, right? Of course, some of you may be like non-procrastinating people, but generally it's happens to all of us, right? So the procrastination, the act of delaying tasks or postponing, I'll do it later types, right, is a common human thing, right? I'll do this after I watch this reel. And the when you watch that reel, you are stuck for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Then, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Then tomorrow morning you get up, I just want to sleep a little bit, and I'll do it tomorrow. So tomorrow never comes, right? So that's the thing. So it's a human nature to little bit procrastinate a little, but however, when it comes to positive activities, right? Especially those related to our own spiritual growth, such as meditation, study, and etc., we should not procrastinate, right? Especially when your lama says to you that you should do something, then then you should really not procrastinate on that, right? So, the advice provided here is loud and clear, right? Do not even plan to procrastinate. Do not even plan to procrastinate. So here is implying that you should have a proactive stance against procrastination, right? Sometimes we plan to procrastinate. Tomorrow is Chinese New Year. Day after tomorrow is Chinese New Year. So after Chinese New Year, we plan to procrastinate. So here, basically, of course, we should enjoy a little, but not too much. Here is basically saying the, what do we call, value of immediate engagement, right? When you're, of course, like when the lama or teacher says you to do it, you should do it immediately. So, like immediate engagement basically means whether spiritually or it will be, of course, seeing at it as a work may feel like, oh, this is work, right? But seeing it as a source of joy and fulfillment, right? Changing the perspective a little, right, will really help you to grow, right? To grow. So when we are procrastinating, it's sometimes we don't know we are procrastinating, even though we are procrastinating, right? So to do that, the same application applies here, right? The vigilant introspection, and when you are procrastinating, you know the procrastinating mind is coming here, the thing, want to procrastinate is coming here, and we stop it right there, right? So here, Be someone who applies himself to the holy dharma. So here the dharma doesn't mean religious, changing yourself, right? Changing your own innerly. So the next verse number, I think 31. Yep. Without exaggerating your desire for success in all your adventures, respect your guru with body, speech, and mind. Here, I think I should talk about the guru devotion, but I think it's okay. So you should desire for success, right? But do not exaggerate it, right? And once you took refuge in a guru, respect him with your body, speech, mind, whichever endeavor you have to do physically and like through speech or through mind, right? Thinking it, you should do it. So that's the thing. The main thing is here we should be finding the balance, right? So that's the thing. So I think I'll just read this and leave it for maybe next session. Uh, in brief, bear all superiors to you above you like a crown. Protect yourself from inferiors as if they are sharp blades edge, and gladly befriend your equals as if you are yoked oxen. Right. So here, basically, the what it's saying is you will encounter three types of people, basically, right? Somebody who is higher than you, somebody who is lower in experience. I'm not saying in stature or anything, lower in experience or like that, and lower someone as equal as you, right? So we should treat them equally. So of course we'll talk about it again. So it's about mastering the art of how to interact with people, right? So I think I stopped my talk here. Basically, what we went through today is the five degeneration and indecision, right? How to be more decisive, right? And like how the five degenerations affect us, right? How the five generation accept us, and being careful with what you consume, right? Being careful with what you consume, and uh, yeah, and of course, like not procrastinating on whether it's your guru giving you advice or like holy anything that's related to spiritually, right? So not procrastinating on that. So I think I'll stop here, and I think like the next session is the last. So do you have any general Q&A, whether related to this, right? Question, we'll have a short question and answer session. Like if you have any related to Buddhist texts or whichever, right? If I know, I'll try to answer it. And if it's related to the text, of course, I'll try to answer it. So anything, otherwise we will go a little bit into a discussion time. Yes.
Thank you, Rinpoche, for your teaching. I have a question. It is to do with looking at other people's faults. In our Dharma practice, we try to avoid looking at other people's faults. But every now and then, not every night, every day, every moment, you would meet people who are boastful, who has not an ego, who also gossips. And we tend, because we're practicing Dharma, we realize that we are actually looking at other people's faults, which is not practicing Dharma. So internally, I'm like, okay, I want to stop looking at this person's fault, boastful fault. And I'm trying very hard to look at the positive side of the person, but I can't find it.
You don't see any positives.
So I know that the fault is me. I know that I cannot see it is because I have too many, stuff blurring my eyes, my ears, everything. So
maybe wear a spectacle.
yeah. So so can you please provide an advice to help me stop looking at other people's fault?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, it's like genuinely hard to just not see what's happening in front of you, right? Not see what's happening in front of you. You will see them. But instead of judging them, right? Judging them based on their faults, you could see from your own point of view, you could see it as a training ground, as I think previously Joshua or David had said, as a training ground. And look it as like a, oh, so this is how it looks like. You see the perspective, right? You see how it looks. So next time I'm not doing this, right? And even though they are there, if you become too judgmental and too critical about it, then it will affect you. Of course, like we will see, even though we don't want to see, we will see people doing bad things, and that's the fact, right? That's a fact that we can't avoid. But instead of being judgmental and thinking about it again and again, this person boasts again and again about them and keeping it in mind, we just let it go. And okay, he boasts, but I won't be doing this, and improve yourself, right? And not be too judgmental about it. That's the, I think, what I would suggest. Anyone else? Yeah, Lillian.
Rinpoche, this is just a question from from a different point of view. Now that we have a face-to-face teaching for this few weeks, right? And you have this topic, what if your next teaching is going to be via Zoom? What sort of topics will you be looking at that you could have some sort of this type of interaction that can go on? Because now it's going to be like, we can't be here all the time. So there's going to be some distance, and there is technology. So what would you be thinking that you could teach us, or what sort of topics that you are more that you'll be interested in as well?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so the topics, of course, there are a lot of topics, right? A lot of topics, like uh, depending on what the situation is, right? So, of course, as we go, lot of there here we are learning a lot of things about balancing, right? The balancing is basically a way of philosophy of middle way, right? Philosophy of middle way. So maybe next time we can talk about that, right? Maybe next time we can talk about, or we can also talk about, there are a lot of, like, what do we call, lot of books on human values, right? A lot of maybe like different, what do you call, different texts on human values. Maybe we can talk about that, right? So as we gradually progress over and over, then we can go more deeper and deeper. I hope so. That of course we can use the technology to have more interactive situations, right? Of course, it won't be as, what do we call, connection feeling as having a face to face, but it may help, right? So that type of thinking is there, but we'll see how it goes on, right? As impermanence is always there. Yeah. So anyone else? Like general questions? Any general questions is okay. Not even related to this, right? Whether it's related to like philosophy or anything. If not, okay. Questions and answers. Okay. So if not, I think we can go into the, yeah, we have around 10-15 minutes. We can go into the discussion theme, right? Let's try the discussion theme. So if you have any questions, maybe in the tomorrow, not tomorrow, right? Next session, last session, we can have a little bit of Q&A, like slight Q&A for like different topics, if you have any questions on that, right? So I think this discussion, we came up with something like here in the verse, I think 30, yeah, verse 30, without diminishing your concern for how others perceive you, minimize discussing the qualities and fault of others, right? So here, basically, what it says is without diminishing the concern of how others perceive you. So the question here is, can we or should we really ignore comments or nagging of others, right? Let's not say nagging, we can ignore the nagging, right? Or comments of others, especially guru, right? Especially guru, something that guru may say, suppose something the guru may say for you to start something, right? Then you don't want to start it. Or loved ones to achieve our, what do we call, goals, or goals/dreams, objectives. So any views on that? Should we look like unrelated people? It may be easy to just let go. I don't care about their opinions, right? But somebody who's your loved one, somebody who's your, is it really, should we really ignore Yes. Okay, Shia is asking you to. Any opinions? Should we or should we not? Especially Guru. Any ideas? Like, suppose, let's say,
But gurus,
Guru doesn't speak to you.
gurus seldom tell us, yeah.
Okay,
But if they tell, it will be a direction and blessing. So I think it'll be good.
so it should be good and you should act upon it,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Yeah. So, any other? Like, suppose loved ones, right? I'll give you a situation. Maybe like your parents giving comments about your career choice, right? Having a perception. Oh yeah, perception. Is there a written perception? Yeah, like how the parents perceive you, right? Suppose about that. Yes.
Can I go back to the guru part?
Yeah.
Yeah, before the parents. Yes, the answer I would say is yes. We should. I wasn't gonna say. No, I was gonna say the opposite of we should. Yeah, we should embrace and listen to what our gurus have told us, and go back and contemplate and try and act on it. And because my guru, I'm sure many people guru, has always been telling us to be a good human being.
Yes.
From day one, it was always a good human. Now he's still telling us to be a good human being. It is not an easy practice. I pray and hope that I will get a chance to meet him again next life. And I'm quite sure he will still tell me to be a good human being, because it is really not easy
Yes.
to practice. Just one instruction has taken, many, many years. So I think it's a difficult instruction, but it does make us become a better human being every day.
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course, to be the perfect human being, you will need to become like an enlightened one, maybe. So that's a really hard in video, right? But percentage wise, like I'm a little bit of percentage person also. So percentage wise, you can improve like 0.5% every day, right? Every day, not even every day, like every year, right? So slowly you become like maybe like 50%, 60% of what your guru aspires you to be, right? So slowly like that. So slowly, okay. So okay, anybody else on this? Yeah, Kenny. Is it Kenny? Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think it falls back to what's the motivation behind. For example, if a comments or nagging from a guru, for example, if the guru asks or requests a person in a career choice to be a doctor versus a family member requesting a person to be a doctor, the intention is different. A guru's intention could potentially be to save life, to save people.
Yes.
But a parent's intention could be is for my ego.
Yeah. Ego.
Is for the family to look good. So it really depends on what's the motivation is. If it's only for ego, I think we shouldn't put so much focus on it. But if the intention is really for a person's good, I think we should listen to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, the intention matters, right? But what if even the intention is good, right? Even if the intention, you really don't want to do it. Yeah, suppose your family member's intention is for your same as your guru, right? But will it make a difference for you? Like even if the family members want you to save people's lives and be a like well recognized, well reputed doctor, right? And even if you don't want to be a doctor, you just want to be an engineer or let's say engineer or a scientist, lawyer, right? Different profession. Even then, should we just ignore that?
Then I think you should talk to the guru first.
Then ask for the guru's validation. So yeah. Yes, Lillian.
I think there's more than one way. We say in order to save life, there's more than one way to save lives. You don't have to be a doctor to save lives. I mean, if you're a doctor and then you decided that it's going to be for money, then you're not going to be saving lives. Or you can be saving lives and making money at the same time. So my point of view is it's more than one way. So if I want to be a scientist, I can save life by researching, doing something else. I can be an engineer. I make climate changes possible. Teacher, I teach the younger generation. So it's all possible. At the end of the day, I believe it's the motivation and the still need to do good lah. You have to balance that way of thinking.
So anyone else? Any opposing views? Any opposing views that is saying that I should always ignore, I should do what I want? No. Never. David is saying never. Yes.
Oh, my wife, I never listen to her lah.
Even though motivation is good.
This recorder you can play live, no worries. No, Rinpoche, it's like if let's say my parents want me to be a doctor, right? But
Yes.
but the thing is that if I know my own ability that I couldn't be one, then
Yes.
I couldn't lah. But I echo what Lillian said. There's many ways to skin a cat, right?
Yeah.
So
Skin a cat.
skin a cat. Yeah, I think there's a saying, right? There's a many way to skin a cat, right? So I mean, since young, I have the same aspiration of saving life, right? So I became a first aider. Yeah, I became a first aider. So that's also part of my aspiration as well. Yeah.
First what?
First aider.
Oh, first aid. Oh, okay,
First
okay.
aid. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So you learn skills of how to save people. When you see them in accidents or something like that, lah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, basically, so the analogy and the that right. The analogy was to skin a cat and provide first aid to the cat.
Yeah.
Okay, I just jokes apart.
But of course, again, when you ask about the guru's comment, right? I think everybody's mind will be, we will listen, right?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course, like
Yeah.
before devoting yourself to a guru, you should always analyze, right? So
Yes.
that's really important because like here I'm putting this guru as a guru in the question mark because like to highlight the importance of what you call guru and loved ones. Loved ones we can ignore. As David said, he will ignore. But guru, once we devote, it's really hard to ignore, right? It's a matter of spiritual practice and religious practice also. So as mentioned in the Laurim text and all, the guru should have the 10 qualities of perfect guru and so on, right? So it should be really delicate balance, like how you perceive the guru as. So the loved ones, I was sure that someone would come up with a wife that they say that they would ignore a loved one. Okay. So that's really good. So anyone else? Yeah. So if that's the thing, then of course we can stop here, right? We can stop here. So main thing, as we in the every like different types of discussion that we have, we come back to the same thing, right? Motivation, motivation or intent, and the balance, right? Balance. So all of this is a really in the philosophy of Madhyamika or middle way, the balance of balancing between the extremism and nihilism, right, is really hard. But this philosophy, whether you go too much extreme, you go to the extremism, and whether you don't go too much, you go to the nihilism, right? So balancing here, basically the philosophy of Madhyamika is relevant here also, right? The act of balancing. So here we see in every discussion that it's basically the act of balancing when we want, of course, there are like social human values that are necessity, right? That's a necessity, like non-killing, non-stealing, and etc. Like these are like basic human values. But the fact comes back to the fact that we have to balance it, right? Even if you are considerate, if you are too considerate, the boss may not be considerate, and so on, right? Yes.
Actually, sorry, Grace from
Yes.
Bangkok. So she sent a message 2 minutes ago, but I just saw it now.
Okay.
So she wanted to share that whether it's guru's advice or love from anyone, she will contemplate, evaluate the pros and cons instead of just taking as per the instructions. So that, whenever any similar situations arise, she will be in a position to take a more informed decision on her own rather than just depend on the external, whatever the external person says.
Okay.
So it's about like what you said, balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So also, yeah, also I agree with her. Also in the gurus, right? So there are different level of gurus. One can be the tantric guru, right? So HYT, is it called HYT? Yeah. So these are like a different level, right? But general like sutric gurus and all, you can have a discussion with them, right? Have like a communication with them. Then like whether if your views are not aligning or so on. So these are the steps that you can take instead of just going against the guru, right? Communicating with the guru. Yeah. So that's the thing. Yeah. So if your guru is really saying it for the cause of dharma, holy practice, as your own spiritual practice, right? Not related to the material world and all, of course you should follow it. Right? So that's the thing. So I think we'll stop it here, and in the next session will be the last session. We'll try to do a short meditation session, as I talked before, like how to calm your mind and go into the maybe four immeasurables, because in a lot of the teachings is basically talking about equanimity, right? So how to practice all this. Yeah. So I think we'll stop here. Okay.